everybody, to another episode of Tech CMO Talks featuring marketing leaders in the software industry. I'm your host, Connie, and today you'll learn why product storytelling is so powerful when you market to developers and how to do it right. My guest today is a strategic product marketer with experience in B2B and B2C industries. For more than 20 years, she has specialized in the positioning, messaging, and go to market strategy of new and existing products in technology, financial services, consumer packaged goods, and hospitality verticals. I'm super happy to welcome today Tracie Stamm, Principal Consultant at Articulate Marketing Strategy. Hi, Tracie. Welcome.
Hi, Connie. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us today. So, why don't we get to the basic question first? So, I'm interested to learn what is product story and how is it different from brand story? So, how would you define each of them?
Yeah, definitely. So, product storytelling, in my view, as a product marketing enthusiast, is really at the heart of the function of product marketing. And it's critical to organizations that are looking to grow from those, first few early customers to something that's truly scalable in terms of a sales and marketing engine. You need your product story to help you achieve that level of scale. Organizations tend to start with a story that looks and feels and sounds a lot like, here's the widget, let me show you. And they increment over time to something that's more like, here's the widget and here's who else likes the widget. But what really starts to move the needle to scale both the market and also the organization is the ability to tell the story of the product from problem to solution. And it is different from a brand story. Brand stories exist to, they're much more emotive. They exist to encompass, what will ultimately be, a wider, broader line of products and solutions. It tells you, why we're in business as an organization, what our ethos is in terms of the problems that we're trying to solve and the way we like to solve those problems. Versus, the product story says, here's the, here's the pain that you experience, and here's a way to solve that pain, and here's how we solve that pain. On the consumer level, one, example that I like to lean on or think about is, Nike. Nike as a brand is highly recognizable. You can recite their tagline, just do it, probably by heart, even if you are not an athlete. But you understand that they're in the business of equipping athletic performance and athletic pursuits. But the product stories get more granular. They have these different product lines in terms of, which athletic pursuits they serve. I personally am a runner. So Nike running is a product story that I start to pay attention to. And you can, what you can achieve with your running through their products in terms of, it really comes down to the same value props, no matter, what it is you're shopping for. Ease of use. Am I going to have better performance? Is the experience going to be more pleasant in some way? Dry wicking, the sweat, away from my body as I run. That's part of the product story that I want to hear about. So I think there are some inherent differences, in the terms of altitude of storytelling.
Great. Yeah, that's a very nice explanation. So product storytelling is on another level. I think looking at more the product features, use cases, how it can help to solve people's problem. In that case, why is product storytelling so relevant when we market to developers or software engineers, a technical audience?
Yeah, developer marketing is unique from enterprise marketing. It's a subset of it today because you're messaging to the end user more prominently and less so to the IT decision maker. And, we'll talk today a lot of the reasons, how that has come to be. or in what spaces that has come to be more prominent. Cloud native has done a ton to give organizations, options and flexibility. This is really one of the main drivers of why developer marketing has become so critical. When you can take your app, any app, and decide where it runs, how it runs, and who accesses it, how much they access it more now today than ever before. Really, what's at the heart of that is, the developer that the organization depends on. This flexibility has driven the art of engineering dramatically so in recent years. Now developers are much more specialized in their skill sets. You have traditional app developers, you have cloud native app developers, you have those that know specific dev languages and infrastructures. The list goes on. And organizations, now are increasingly depending on them, these deeply specialized skill sets, not only to run their IT shops, but to guide them as well. This is really a new paradigm in the last several years. And it's made organizations much more dependent on the practitioner than ever before. So, product marketers and marketers that want to be selling into those organizations are much more, deeply tasked to be speaking to that practitioner than we used to be. We used to be speaking more for enterprise sales and marketing into the decision maker level, and now it's the practitioner.
Yes, great. So, are there any particular frameworks or approaches that we can use to get started to craft these product stories specifically for developer audience?
Yeah, definitely. The framework that I come back to time and again is the one that I learned when I first started my career in product marketing. And that's from the Pragmatic Marketing Institute, which is, they have this sort of like funnel of storytelling where you begin with the market challenge at the top level, at a movie, when you hear the trailers for the movies that kick off the experience, you hear the voiceover in the trailer say, in a world where, cloud native apps are the baseline of all IT shops, developers are tasked with fill in the blank, you have to introduce this sort of market challenge. What is everybody facing? What are many people facing? That is sort of the externality that's driving the nature of the work we're doing today. And then, you cut down, like the next level is, here's what's needed. What's needed to address that market challenge is, agile development, CI/CD pipeline. You can start to talk about some of the ways that we address this broader market challenge. And then, the next sort of layer down from that is like, what's the ideal way to address those challenges? Here's what's needed. Here's the solution. And here's what the ideal solution looks like. Here's what excellent looks like. And then from there, you introduce your product or solution in a way that maps to those, the pillars that you laid out in your ideal solution. This is really kind of the framework and approach that I take to messaging really any of the products that I've worked on in a variety of verticals.
Great. Thanks. So a good story always works. How can we make our product narrative stick?
Yeah. I am passionate about the voice of customer. As a marketer, I'm passionate about product marketing, but I know its limits, right? There's only so much that a prospect will really take in from sales and marketing. They're going to be inherently attuned to the notion that we drive at revenue. We have our own goals that are not perfectly, in the Venn diagram, perfectly aligned to their goals. We have our own unique drivers, and any savvy prospect is attuned to that, right? So, one of the best things I like to do to augment, my voice in marketing is to leverage the voice of the customer. After I've set up the problem and the solution for you, now I want you to hear it from your industry peers in their own words. I can leverage customer references, customer storytelling, lots of different media to tell this story. But it gets at, something that is, more relevant because it's not a paid voice. And it also usually is going to be a lot more emotive, something that's a lot more, offers the prospect a deeper ability to connect to the value prop.
Yeah, I fully agree. I never want to miss an opportunity to speak with a customer as a marketer.
Yeah.
When you hear their stories, it could be so different from what you thought, how I'm helping them to solve their problems. And it gives you so much inspiration. So, totally agree. So, my next question is of course, with the content marketing approach, right? We want to get our target audience to take action, either to get on a free trial or to maybe ask for demo and so forth to try out the product. So, what kind of call to actions that helps in the product storytelling to get the target audience to do that?
Yeah, I think it can vary depending on where you are in that buyer journey. So I always want to be mindful of that when I'm speaking to a prospect. Are they sort of at the top of the funnel where they are developing an awareness for maybe their problem, in the problem space, maybe an awareness for my product? Versus like deeper down in the funnel where I'm, driving them through their consideration process. They've developed maybe a short list of potential solutions to their problem, mine included, to, a deeper level right before, we get ready to hand the lead off to sales. So where they're developing a preference for my product among their short list of possible solutions. So depending on where they are in that progression, I might offer them, at the earlier stages, I'm going to be offering them some, thought leadership content that talks about how, talks about that market challenge from usually, my voice, my organization's voice, establishing ourselves as, experts in the space who can be trusted advisors to them to, guide them through, navigate them through, answering some of the questions that they have. To, the middle level, we consider our solution in your short list, and here's why. That's maybe going to be some of those customer stories that I mentioned. Here's why these customers prefer us, what their use cases were, what their, outcomes were, how well those outcomes matched to what they sought initially when they shopped a solution and selected our solution. And then, that bottom level, like the preference phase of the buying journey, particularly with the developer audience, I would say this is really where you start to talk about technical implementation, feasibility of that implementation into their current environment. Maybe you're talking speeds and feeds, the ability to stand up the solution, without a lot of pain. Really, this is where the prospect is saying, yeah, this sounds good. Can I really adopt it effectively, and get my money's worth out of it? So, sort of a layer down in technical detail, I think.
Great. And therefore also a lot of developer products enable people the free trial to get access to immediately the software so they can evaluate that as well, I suppose.
Absolutely.
So, okay, thanks, Tracie. Well, at the beginning, you talk about the Nike story, but I'm interested if you have other favorite product stories you would like to share with us.
Yeah, definitely. As far as developer tools, Replicated is a company with a product, I think, that has a very compelling product story in their space. The flagship story anchors on the classic build versus buy question, and we could build this. We have this problem. We can sort it out ourselves. That sounds hard, painful, costly, you name it. Or I can outsource that solution so that I can focus on what I want to focus on, what I do better focusing on, what I have more opportunity if I focus on. Um, replicated at Replicated, we leveraged a great customer story to be the face of that. HashiCorp was a prominent customer for Replicated. Essentially, that Hashi went through this process, right, where they said, hey, not only can we cobble this together, we have all these pieces, parts of the functionality that the Replicated product just, delivers out of the box. But to do that, we threw a lot of rare, expensive developer resources at it. And really, those rare, expensive developer resources we better used and better applied to our own core capabilities to meet our own unique market needs and satisfy those, drive revenue against those. With Replicated, HashiCorp can offload dev functions that are essentially, for lack of a better term, boring to them. They're not their dev team's highest and best use of scarce resources. To keep their engineers focused on what matters more or even what matters most to the business, not to mention to their own dev teams, right? Developers are a discerning bunch, and rightly so. They've acquired very specialized skills that are very unique in a very constrained labor market. They hold the cards. They don't have to work on projects and products and development work that they don't find interesting, satisfying, or creative. They want to be working on what matters most to the business. But, I could offer another story, right? Like, let's take a step back. I've worked outside of tech in a breadth of industries for an even broader set of products, as you mentioned in your intro. I had a client in the state government space, a bipartisan political action committee called the Matriots. Not unlike a startup, the Matriots had a humble grassroots origin story. They started from a few people, rallying around a cause, saying, we see a market challenge that we think we can help solve. But as they grew in size, they realized that they had also kind of grown a fragmented story, both in terms of their brand and their product. The challenge for me working with them as a product marketer was, to help them define who are we, what do we do, what do we offer uniquely in the market. It's classic product marketing positioning and messaging, different product space, product space.
Great. That's another great example. Thanks for sharing. If I may go back to the build versus buy story for a moment. Maybe it sounds like a bit like I'm doing some promotion, but I'm really passionate about this because from Instruct perspective, we also have quite similar situation where some of our customers, they were describing before they come to Instruct, right, the virtual IT labs platform, because many have development backgrounds, so they try to build their own labs. And it turned out it's a lot more complicated, more complex than they envisaged. And they ended up doing a lot of maintenance work, building work, instead of actually what they want to do is to introduce their product to their customers using a virtual IT labs platform. And that's also the reason why they come to us instead, because we offer a lot of state-of-the-art features that meet their needs, either for lead generation, sales enablement, or training. So it resonates with me. So I just come back to this build versus buy example. So thank you.
Absolutely. You're welcome.
So from the marketing aspect, product storytelling really helps a lot. But how does that also help the sales team to maybe speed up the sales cycle or to close more deals?
Yeah, definitely. Creating a better connection to the prospect will speed your sale every time. And, I've spent a lot of time in enterprise product marketing where the sales cycles can be 9, 12, 15 months long. That's a long time to have revenue tied up in your pipeline before you can realize it. And looking for ways to shorten that is, should be top of mind for any organization. Product storytelling, if you can leverage it to better connect with your prospect, it helps you, number one, reading the room. Who needs to be, who's pained by the problem, who cares about the solution. If you can really understand that, it doesn't really just start your storytelling well up front, but it also helps you get the right people in the room so that when you do tell the story, you're telling it, maybe fewer times, maybe more directly to each of those people in the room, and hopefully shortening your sales cycle there. Not just reading the room then, but also like the problem solution storytelling, framework that I kind of set up when I referenced the pragmatic marketing framework. This is something you can kind of tailor to the prospect's use case and to the buyer personas. But when you know who's in the room and what their pains are, you can better, set up, better customize that product solution storytelling so that you're, messaging more quickly and more authentically to connect with the people in the room. The average enterprise tech sale can involve a buying circle that's, 7 or 8 people big at a minimum. So telling a story that relates appropriately to each of those roles can be really critical in getting your pitch across, efficiently and in fewer touches.
Great. So marketers should work closely with sales to craft these product stories. Definitely. So when we talk about developers, I understand that they care a lot about use cases, features. So I would assume that facts and figures play a role also when you create a product story for developers.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, maybe I could take a moment to kind of speak about the nuances of developer marketing at large.
Yes, please.
Selling to developers is in some ways more challenging, but also, and this is where, my breadth of experience comes in, it's the same as any other audience or any other product. And I'll tell you why. In my view, definitely more challenging selling to developers. They're a tough bunch, rightly so, as I mentioned earlier. They hold these highly specialized skill sets in a space that has not only increased its value of that skill, but also in a labor market that is so deeply constrained for it. Developers, write their own tickets right now, and they tend to want to work on the most substantive, creative, meaningful work. With their specialized expertise, this means, though, that they can, sniff out pretty quick whether or not a product is worth its salt. And their questions tend to be, again, here's where there are similarities. Their questions are really not that different than another buyer persona for another product, right? They want to know, is the solution really going to help drive their work? Back to my Nike running example, when I'm looking at running clothes in the store, is this really going to make me a, stronger, faster, happier runner compared to my other, product choices? Is this solution going to make their work better? Is it, in the example of HashiCorp and the build versus buy challenge, is this going to help me offload the stuff that I don't like, or that I'm not good at, or that is not a great use of my time, to free me up for the stuff that I am good at, that I do like, that is a better use of my time? Is the solution going to make my work easier? Makes me happier to come to work every day? Because if it doesn't, if I, as a developer, these unique skills in this constrained labor market, am not happy when I come to work, I'll go find another project.
Yes.
I know developers that have taken employment with the mindset that this will be a 6-week project and that they'll go find the next project after that.
Yeah, I understand. They're in a luxury position.
Yes, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
data, back to your original question, is data, facts and figures, is that important? I think it is important in that, you know, you you have to really find a way to really convince the developer that this thing is really going to work for them and that it's really
Mm-hmm.
relevant.
Mm-hmm.
Data is
Mm-hmm.
a great way to do that.
Okay, thanks. So, Tracy, my next question has to do with the format of the content. So, I think a lot of marketing materials you can call, like documentation, is one example. They're quite text heavy, but we know that some people are visual learners. Some people definitely want to read text, but some people want to do like hands on. So, what's your view on that?
Yeah, you know, you're exactly right that people have different learning styles. But also, I would argue we all have different learning styles in different contexts.
Mhm.
So I think, you don't necessarily have to be compelled to deliver content to suit, different types of learners, but just believe that whether we are in the morning part of our day, commuting in whatever way commuting may look like in today's, work from anywhere reality, whether
Mhm.
we are in the middle part of our day where we have maybe, a few cobbled together minutes of lunchtime and we're standing in our kitchens putting together our lunch and available to listen but not available to look perhaps, or when we're at the end part of our day when, we're tired, as knowledge workers, and maybe we need kind of an easy button to absorb some information via osmosis. As individuals, we can kind of span a range of learning styles over just the course of a day. So I like to create content that can kind of serve any one of those contexts.
Mhm.
What we're doing here as a kind of a video audio
Mhm.
podcast, you know, I would take something like this and chop it up into, different formats. You can deliver it audio only, you can deliver it video, you can clip it out so that it's not, you're just kind of focusing on one question and answer at a time, maybe, and delivering
Mhm.
those in terms of chapters for small consumption. You can make it available to somebody, in its entirety. Um,
Mhm.
I like to think about the different ways that people are in the course of their day and how they may or may not be available to consume information and customize it for that. We used to just be, long form
Mhm.
written white papers.
Mhm.
And now I think we are much more focused on kind of, the consumable little chunks and morsels that you can not just drip out to the market as marketers, but just make available to people so that they can, choose their own adventure and customize the content that they consume, for them as efficiently as possible.
Mhm. Mhm. Okay, great. Tracy, as a product marketer, how important it is you think if you get an opportunity to get your prospects to get hands-on with your product to learn about it instead of just watching a video or reading some text about it.
Number one,
Hmm.
uh, there's research that shows, like in university settings, that students absorb content much more effectively when the professor is sitting at the table in sort of a live collaborative discussion versus then when the professor is standing at the front of the room just talking at the students.
Mhm.
And I believe that this is because in the former scenario, it's a little more hands-on. It gets integrated a little bit more, and that integration is what helps people learn and retain information.
Mhm.
Similarly, I'll stay with the education model for a moment. I have a dyslexic learner in my family, and what she needs to bring information in and fully integrate it is what they call multi-sensory learning. So she needs to see the material, hear the material, and touch. So like even that can be as simple as like running her finger across the words on the book. That act of integrating a third sense multi-sensory education is part of what brings the information in a meaningful way. I actually believe as a marketer that, neurotypical learners are not any different. And in our professional work, we are not really any different. The way we learn and experience something gets much more meaningfully integrated when we can see and hear and touch it. And product marketers, touching the product is really critical, and being able to touch the product in sort of a low demand way. I don't want to have to only be able to touch with a salesperson engaging. I don't want to have to only touch the product with, a technical person helping me with it. And when I run into problems, I need to be able to, get over those barriers a little bit independently for the purpose of exploring the product fully enough to make a buying decision.
So, are there any resources you would recommend to product marketers to become better storytellers?
Sure. I already mentioned the Pragmatic Marketing Institute. For me, this was kind of the cornerstone of learning classic product marketing, and it continues to be a great resource today when I know I have a question or want to refer back to that sort of those foundational roots. Probably more modern to that, an evolution of that is the Product Marketing Alliance, which is a professional association that offers ongoing professional development, but also a live Slack channel that you can be in community with other product marketers, in ongoing conversation with. People are, it's sort of like open source product marketing. It's a very open knowledge share between professionals that can span, verticals as well. And when I have a question or want to learn something maybe new that someone's doing, that's been an amazing resource, I think, for me as a product marketer and, the work that I do to tell a great, compelling product story.
Great. Thank you. Tracie, thank you so much for spending your time with us today and sharing your perspective on product storytelling and developer marketing. Thank you. So I would like to just summarize and share my takeaway from this conversation. I would like to quote Seth Godin. He said, marketing is no longer about the stuff that you make, but about the stories you tell. I think storytelling has been around for millions of years. And if you do it well, it really helps to captivate people. And using this approach in product marketing helps you to hook your audience and get them to understand how your product can solve their problems or make their lives better. And this is especially important, I think, for when we market to developers. They are busy, they don't like marketing fluff. And if you could really make your product discoverable and show them how your product can make their lives better, do their job better, solve their problems, it works really well with this audience. So once again, thank you, Tracie. And that's a wrap. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.